Feed your head, engage your brain, and enter the mind's eye, an audacious auditorium of awakenings. I'm your host, DJ BJ Turnoff, representing Stitcher Radio and Z-Talk Radio. Just a few days ago, we marked the 500th anniversary of the death of Leonardo da Vinci, arguably one of the most intelligent humans who ever lived. Da Vinci is the quintessential Renaissance man. Painter, sculptor, inventor, architect, scientist, musician, mathematician, astronomist, geologist. The list goes on and on. Leonardo not only continues to inspire engineers, artists, and even doctors today, but also confounds us with the mysteries behind his works, really the likes of which the world has never seen and truly understood before and since, until this episode, humbly. Our guest tonight, P.T. Lowe, he's going to reveal the secrets of Leonardo da Vinci's artistic talent, his special techniques, and the hidden messages in his paintings. P.T. Lowe is a fourth-generation author who was exposed to Leonardo da Vinci's teachings before he was even old enough to speak. P.T. is an avid historian and dedicated to educating artists on how to create masterful art. The information you're going to hear tonight is in his newly published book, Perspective, The Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci, and supposedly has been passed down to him through 21 trusted generations. This info, revealed tonight for the first time, has been kept a closely guarded secret for over 5 centuries under the strict instructions of Da Vinci himself, not to be revealed until the 500th anniversary of his death. Ding, 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 ding. The real meaning behind The Last Supper, the true identity of Mona Lisa, and how to duplicate Leonardo's painting system when The Mind's Eye returns. The Mind's Eye is back on Stitcher Radio and Z-Talk Radio. Not sure if it's synchronicity, coincidence, or just damn fine marketing, but doesn't it always seem like new discoveries always kind of come out around these big anniversaries, right? A lock of hair believed to have belonged to the Renaissance master is set to undergo DNA testing with the ultimate goal to hopefully solve a long-running mystery of whether the bones at Leonardo's presumed burial place do indeed actually belong to the artist. You can go read the article now on our website, themindseyemedia.com. Again, themindseyemedia.com. You can also get the article now on our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, at Mind's Eye Show. We always appreciate you listening. We really appreciate you subscribing. Join us in a Mind's Eye moment as we continue our trip down Da Vinci's discovery lane with art educator and historian P.T. Lowe after this quick commercial break. The Mind's Eye on Stitcher Radio and Z-Talk Radio welcomes P.T. Lowe, who has spent over 30 years waiting for the right time to reveal his knowledge into the inner workings of Leonardo da Vinci. That time is now. It's also revealed in the newly published Perspective, The Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci. P.T. Lowe, benvenuto, P.T. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
The 500th anniversary of Leonardo da Vinci's death was just a few days ago, and that's what brings us together. And there's so many mysteries that surround Da Vinci, but this one that you're bringing to the table, I've never really even heard it before. So set the scene for us a little bit. The days leading up to Da Vinci's death and the secret plan he devised for that specific day, May 2nd, 2019.
Around Leonardo's planning of the release of this information, he determined that he should live to be around somewhere at the age of 75 to 80, and that the 500th anniversary of his death would be a good time to release this knowledge. And the reason he didn't want this information public anytime during his life or immediately after his life or his passing was because of the innate nature of the ruling class of that time, which was the Roman Catholic Church. So I'm sure you're aware of their reach and their power. I mean, it's even spanned to this day. I mean, it's a very temple thing to talk negatively of the Vatican or the Roman Catholic Church because their power has progressed even till 2019. But Leonardo specifically didn't want to have himself or any of his friends or family excommunicated or worse by not revealing the true inner workings of his own mind and really just his own discoveries. And so he hid his information and messages inside of his work and asked that his assistant, Salahi, pass down this knowledge from generation to generation to the firstborn son or to a trusted friend of the family, and just hold on to this knowledge until 500 years after his passing. And whoever held it at that time, kind of a hot potato kind of thing, got to reveal it to the world.
So tell us a little bit about the trip that the Codex took to get into your hands.
I don't know a lot about its early stages. What I do know is that my grandfather received it through a friend who passed it on to my father, who then passed it on to me. And so, being a child and brought up with this knowledge, I kind of thought nothing of it. I thought it's a very interesting story, but I didn't really think that it would be a major endeavor or a major release, because it's just kind of growing up, your priorities are more about girls and things more interesting than Leonardo da Vinci. But it always stayed in the back of my mind, and unfortunately my father passed away when I was 9 years old, so I only got a 9 years old worth of teachings, but it just kind of stuck back there. And then as time went on, I started to see things like the Da Vinci Code, and I would hear people say things like, here's the Mona Lisa, we have no idea what it means. And I would say, well, it's pretty obvious. It's right there is the meaning and right in front of you. And people would say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's when I began to really realize this is serious business. It needs to be told properly, and I need to put this book out and get the information out there like I was supposed to.
Yeah, at what point did it hit you? Did it really hit you? Holy crap, I'm holding the secrets that reveal Da Vinci's his paintings, his techniques. I mean, was that pretty recently, or it's been a couple decades now in the work for this, culminating in this?
There have been so many holy crap moments, for lack of a better word, because what happened was I just started getting serious about it. I started to look into what I knew and started doing my own verifications. Like, okay, well, if I set up a Da Vinci easel and I look at the Mona Lisa, do I actually see what I know I've been told I should see? And then when I saw that, I said, oh, holy crap. And then when I looked at John the Baptist and I saw the cross that's above his heart on his breast, I said, oh, I really did a backflip and said, holy crap. And once I really started realizing what I knew and what I could find if I set up an easel properly and looked at Da Vinci's work was true, there was multiple holy crap moments.
And you said you were taught by your father who gave you these teachings, or was it somebody else? Because you said you said your father died at a young age, so I just wanted to.
He did. I was 9 at the time. He was 41, and it's unfortunate, but up until his death, he taught me as much as he could, and it just so happened to be enough.
Where are the documents right now, and have you attempted to authenticate them?
The documents themselves were lost in a fire a few generations ago, so everything has been passed on orally. And so it was just a teaching where he would sit me down in front of the Mona Lisa and explain Leonardo's technique and how to properly reassess my mind and look at it from a perspective of from behind the painting and understand that his art was protruding from the artwork, and the emotional direction of the Mona Lisa needs to be coming from her and not from me, and that she's trying to tell me something that's behind her and not trying to show me something that's inside of me. And once I started getting the concepts, I just had to write the book.
What was the day like, May 2nd? Did it go
May 2nd was great.
Yeah. No, please.
No, well, I mean, I got a lot of phone calls, a lot of Facebook messages and people buying the book and emailing me, hey, I got the copy, and it was a fun day. I wish it could have been a bigger media day, but eventually more and more the media will catch on. It's exposure, it takes time. But the book actually wasn't even finished until a week before the 5th, so I couldn't really do a lot of media dancing right up until the book release day. I wish I would have had it done sooner, but it was such a strenuous work. It took almost right up to the last minute.
And I know you're a family man, PT, and I don't want to get too morbid for a second, but especially because you're not that old, obviously, judging by your picture.
38.
Yeah, so judging by your picture, you clearly look pretty young. But were you yourself kind of? Were you making your own backup plan just in case something happened to you? Like,
That is a very good point, and I guess I have the invincibility of youth mindset because I never thought about that. I never considered not living to see this day. That's just something that never crossed my mind.
well, luckily you made it here, and I'm glad that you made it to the show to be able to reveal this.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. So in 2016, two Italian researchers purportedly identified 35 living relatives of Da Vinci. Have you ever been contacted by any of these relatives or any others claiming to be living descendants of the artist, particularly in the last few days?
No, but they were not entrusted with the knowledge. It was actually given to Salahi, his direct assistant, an apprentice.
Why was that?
Salahi was the only person Leonardo directly trusted because of the strict consequences of this knowledge getting out. He knew that Salahi wouldn't reveal the information. And I think they just worked so closely together that he already knew many of the things that he wanted to be inside of this codex. And so trusting him with this task was just a natural, progression of their relationship.
And I mean this next question respectfully, but I kind of have to ask it. Has anyone called the codex or what you're saying, a hoax or a fraud?
Not yet. I am anxiously awaiting that challenge because, all you have to do is set up a Da Vinci easel and put Leonardo's work on an easel and take a look at it. And that defies all judgment whatsoever. Because if you look at Leonardo's work right now, you cannot interpret the emotional expression on the faces of any of his characters. And that's because the light that is reflecting from that canvas is not emotionally aligned with what you're used to seeing on a human being that is exuding an emotion. So there's a 30-degree angle that's offset. So when you look at Leonardo's work, you see the resemblance of an emotional expression, but you can't make out what the face is trying to say, which is common with Mona Lisa, all of the faces on The Last Supper, any of his work. It's a common occurrence. But when you put his work on a Da Vinci easel and you look into his work, the emotional expression on their faces immediately strikes a chord because now you immediately recognize what the eyes are saying. You see the gestures and how they relate to the inquisitiveness of the character or the expression of their love. Everything begins to make sense instantaneously without, the need for me to sit there and explain anything, which is where I had one of my OMG moments, when I would put his work on an easel. I could see how the flow of the water was moving properly. I could see how the emotional expression of the men as they raised the cannon from the foundry was being exuded as they all work together mentally and physically to build these weapons. And it's just so much is hidden behind the lack of properly observing Da Vinci's work that when you put it on a Da Vinci easel and you take a look at it, it's just mind-blowing.
Describe the Da Vinci easel for us. Let's say, we were flies on the wall in Da Vinci's workshop. Describe what we would see there.
Sure. So a standard painter or traditional painter walks up to the canvas and does their best to exude what is in their body mentally onto the canvas as a two-dimensional rendering. Well, Leonardo realized that what's in your body is three-dimensional. So you're trying to take a three-dimensional image in your body and put it on a two-dimensional canvas, which is nearly impossible because of the math required to do that as you paint. So what he devised is called the Da Vinci easel. And the Da Vinci easel is a method that allows you, the painter, to paint in a three-dimensional scene on a two-dimensional canvas. And so the way that this is done is using a number of different techniques. The first technique being that the canvas is aligned with the emotional expression of the painter. So instead of the canvas facing the painter, the canvas faces away from the painter. So now the painter is standing behind the canvas. Okay, now this makes it so that the image coming out of the canvas is in the same line of sight as the painter is facing the canvas forward. So now, in order to make it a three-dimensional rendering, the painter must lean the canvas backward at a 30-degree angle, so the canvas is now elevated. So from floor to ceiling, it's leaned at a 30-degree angle facing away from the painter, making like a triangle between the painter and the canvas. The third element is, of course, the mirror. So, of course, Da Vinci wrote in mirror script, and this is the reason why, is because he used a Da Vinci easel to do all of his painting and writings, except when he was writing letters, of course. So the mirror is aligned at a 60-degree angle, pointed directly into the eyes of the painter. So the painter now approaches the painting process with the canvas at a 30-degree angle facing away from him, the mirror at a 60-degree angle facing toward him, and now he looks into the mirror at the reflection of the canvas that's created inside of the mirror. And so now the angle of approach changes completely, because now instead of putting your hand up against a canvas that's facing away from you, the painter leans their arm over the canvas and paints on the canvas, which is now facing away from them. So from my own personal experience using a Da Vinci easel, this is truly an emotional process, because we're so used to painting and drawing away from us that when you paint and you draw, your hand is facing your body, it really feels like the brush head is inside of your gut. That's the best way I can possibly describe it. It feels like you're painting inside of you what you're already feeling. And so it's so emotional. And at the same time, you're seeing what you're painting and what you're drawing in the mirror created. And you're seeing an exact representation of what you're thinking and feeling, that it just brings tears to your eyes. And so every time I get on a Da Vinci easel, I burst into tears and can't stop until I'm done. But it's just a byproduct of the emotional connection it creates in your artistic creation.
In my mind, if I'm envisioning this right, and this seems quite radical, so he's drawing, so using the Da Vinci easel, one would be essentially creating the art upside down or kind of top down from behind, pretty much?
Exactly. Top down is exactly the way that it was done. And so we can prove this by looking at Da Vinci's hatching strokes. So hatching is a description of drawing parallel lines, a series of parallel lines to make shading and to show shadows when you draw. So if you look at Da Vinci's hatching, it's bewildered scientists for years. And I once listened to a Da Vinci scholar discuss how we know Da Vinci, literally a quote, we know Da Vinci was left-handed, but we can't figure out why his left-handed hatching seems to take on a bottom-to-top flow instead of top to bottom, as another left-handed artist would do. And I started kind of chuckled when I heard that, because I understood that he painted from a top-down process. So when your hand is above your canvas and you're painting from a top-down process, when you draw your hatching lines, you pull your hand towards you, which creates a very deep-looking hatching from the beginning and a lighter hatching towards the top, because your hand is now raised as it comes off the canvas. So Da Vinci's art is clearly painted by a left-handed artist, but his hatchings are upside down because he stood from behind the canvas on a Da Vinci easel.
I used to paint a little bit as a kid, and like my mind just it's hard for me to wrap around it, because it's the exact opposite of pretty much everything that I was taught. And sounds like you had some experience doing it. Do you find that after using this way, is it easier, or is it just a much more experiential experience?
It's both. It's easier to do in much of the same way as it's easier to watch a 3D movie as it is to watch a 2D movie, because you're so much more immersed in the painting process that you can't even dream of doing anything else while you're doing it. Like, if someone were to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, let's go to Disney World for a week, you say, I'm really good where I am right now, which is why I can totally see why Da Vinci spent hours and hours and hundreds and thousands of hours and years just painting, because it's just so immersive. You feel like you're in a different world when you're on a Da Vinci easel.
You've probably looked at all his works through the Da Vinci easel. What point because in the Lost Codex, I don't think it was mentioned, at what point do you think he started using this technique that he developed?
right when he got to Verrocchio's studio, his first work that I've ever seen is a two-dimensional drawing of the head of a boy, and it's drawn on on a shield, and it looks like any other drawing than any other artist would have ever done. But then, right when he gets to Verrocchio's studio, everything he does from then on is just completely done with the Da Vinci easel. So I'm not sure that the easel was something that he kept from Verrocchio because he seemed to have used it in his studio. But it's never mentioned in any history books. Verrocchio never discusses the Da Vinci easel. So that's my only mystery is to why no one else ever discussed this throughout all of Renaissance history.
Now I can understand why he would keep the messages behind his paintings a secret, and we're going to talk about that momentarily. But why would he want to keep the Da Vinci easel, just the technique, a secret for 500 years?
You know, I honestly don't even believe that the easel itself was meant to be kept a secret. The only reason I can think of that it was never discussed is for the same reason that Bill Gates never discussed the computer keyboard, or General Patton never discussed, how to pull the trigger on a gun. It seems to be that we really don't go into the tools that we use to create our grand things. We just kind of go into what we did and not necessarily what we used to do it. And so I don't necessarily think that the easel was meant to be kept as a secret as much as the messages inside of his paintings were meant to be kept secret.
Because in the Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci, you mentioned that there was one time that he did let someone use the Da Vinci easel and kind of let the secret out of the bag, and that was during his employment as a military industrial designer for the Duke of Milan. Share that story a little bit, because it kind of highlights maybe the true nature of his character.
Yeah, because Da Vinci was doing a little bit of work for the Duke of Milan for engineering and for wartime planning. And instead of actually, just telling them, hey, go build a big cannon, he would have to literally explain to them, okay, look, here's the cannon, here's how you build it, here's how many men you need on this side, here's how to make the pulleys, here's how to make the system that attaches the cannon to the wheel section. And he would do all of this explaining in a single drawing. And then he would go to the cannon foundry foreman and say, okay, look, here's how you look at this picture. And he would put it on the Da Vinci easel and say, look at this, and this is the engineering schematics for what you need to do. And then we can go on to his business and live his life without any worries.
And before you mentioned his mirror writing, what came first, chicken or the egg, mirror painting or mirror writing?
Would have to be mirror writing, because all painting is based in drawing, and so drawing and writing go hand in hand. So before he could paint anything, he would have to draw and write. Maybe
that was a stupid question, I guess. I don't know.
No. It's a legitimate question. I mean, Da Vinci had just like any other artist, you have to draw what it is you're going to paint, because it's just such a taxing process to paint accurately that drawing is just the first step.
All right, so let's get into the second half of the Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci. Again, we're with P.T. Lowe. And quote Da Vinci, "With my art, it's not about what does it mean. Instead, ask yourself, what are they trying to show me?" So tell us, P.T., what was that main message that he felt he had to keep secret for 500 years?
So, remember, Leonardo was standing behind the canvas when he made all of his drawings. And so when you stand behind the canvas, one crucial aspect is that the heart, the actual physical location of the heart of each of your characters, is going to be directly aligned with your own personal body. So the emotional expression exuding from your characters is going to match that of the creator, being the painter. And so each character in Da Vinci's art is exuding an emotional expression, trying to show you something as if they were a living, breathing person. In traditional art that we have nowadays, It's trying to show you something inside of yourself and not something inside of the actual painting. So in Da Vinci's art, he's trying to lead you to a message that's embedded inside of the work, and the character is trying to show you the message. Now, the message is also hidden behind the beautiful artwork created by Da Vinci, but the message is always there. So the message that Leonardo exudes throughout all of his work is that God is a female and not a male, and Jesus is her son. And so this is something he discovered by spending time alone in nature, when he just kind of looked around and saw that Mother Nature, or, nature is our quote-unquote Mother Nature, and the planet that we live on is our Mother Earth, and therefore God is clearly our Mother God, which is directly against the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church, being the first lie ever told, being that God is a male. But you have to look at where that knowledge of a male deity comes from, and who the people are who are telling you that God is a male, what they want from you. And so, every time someone tells you that God's a male, the next thing that they say is, okay, now we need your money. And so it's the type of thing where Da Vinci couldn't even begin to express his feelings on this issue, because the Roman Catholic Church would have none of that. Anyone who threatens their message was immediately removed, shy of Martin Luther, who got away with it because of the Gutenberg printing press. But other than that, it just wasn't done. You didn't talk against the church, and if you did, then they removed you from life. So Leonardo embedded this message in a number of different ways. One of the most prominent and most fun ways to see it is in the Mona Lisa. 6 million people every year make a pilgrimage to go see the Mona Lisa, and if you ask every single one of them, none of them know why. And the reason is because the Mona Lisa is Leonardo's best attempt at painting God herself. And so we know this because of what Mona Lisa is telling us. So the quote-unquote enigmatic nature of Mona Lisa's eyes and smile is indecipherable until you put the painting on a Da Vinci easel. Now, when you do put it on a Da Vinci easel, it's clear that what she is doing is telling us with her eyes to look over my left shoulder. So her eyes and her smile are both pointing behind her, which is why it's been so hard for anyone to possibly understand what she's trying to say, because they're always saying, oh, Mona Lisa is looking at the person looking at the painting. No, she is not. She's looking behind her. So her eyes are directed over her left shoulder to a cross that's standing right on the mountain, right there, smack over her left shoulder, showing you that she's thinking about her son Jesus at all times, and who is the only person in the universe who's always thinking about Jesus, and that's God.
So the real identity of Mona Lisa is God, and God is female.
Exactly right.
Before you touched on that, Da Vinci talked about that he made this connection while he was on a personal sabbatical away from everything but Mother Nature herself. Do you have any indication of how old he was when he came to this realization, or any more details about this event?
I don't. I believe he was in his 20s, and it's just a 2-year period where he just disappeared from history, where he just went into nature just to be by himself.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if it was related to that 2-year period where he pretty much just drops off the grid completely.
Exactly.
What about?
But,
no, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I just wanted to add the fact that Mona Lisa is not the only work where Leonardo expresses this view. There's also the flower study, which is a beautiful drawing of about 17 different flowers, and they're just eloquently done with dramatic shading, and it's really hard to look at anything but these individual flowers. But when you put the painting, or when you put the drawing on a Da Vinci easel, it's very clear. You can see that Da Vinci was not actually drawing flowers. He was drawing the face of God in Mother Nature. And so you simply need to look behind the flowers, and just like one of those word outlines where the darkness around the text shows you the words, you can see the face of God behind the flowers in the picture.
And I think obviously most people are familiar with Mona Lisa, but probably not so much so or as much as the Flower Study. So I'm going to put that on the website right now for our listeners to view. Let's take a quick break as I post that. We'll be right back on The Mind's Eye on Stitcher Radio and Z-Talk Radio with none other than P.T. Lowe talking about Perspective, the Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci. We are back on The Mind's Eye. We're joined by P.T. Lowe talking about the Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci. And again, we have the paintings that we're discussing on our website, themindseyemedia.com, and we left off talking about da Vinci's blasphemous belief that God is a female and God is feminine. And we were talking about his using the Flower Study also as to show this belief. And before we talk about it, and that alludes to that he also believed that not only is God, feminine, that it is Mother Nature. What are your thoughts on that idea that Mother Nature, that God is female, it's Mother Nature? Do you agree with Da Vinci, or do you have your own set of beliefs?
I am 100% in agreement with Da Vinci. It makes perfect sense. Just looking around at the way that the world operates and the deceptions that float around throughout society, and the way that we try to dominate each other with lies, and how people look for religion for answers but rarely find them. And when you have someone who's telling you all day long that God is a male, and then if you even question them, if you even walk up to a pastor, and I've done it, and even bring up the possibility that God is a female, they look at you as if you created the greatest sin on planet Earth. And it's all I did was ask a question, like, is it even possible? And so they defend it so strongly as if it's embedded in the bedrock of their system, and that's because it is. It's the lie that religion is built on is that God is a male. And it's unfortunate. It was the first lie ever told, and it's the oldest lie, and it's one that permeates throughout society at a level that's just inconceivable. And it's just it answers so many questions as to why people go through life unhappily and can't seem to find meaning. When you believe that your creator is one thing, but they're absolutely something else, it just it warps the mind. It's as if believing your father were a female, and then going about life looking up to your father as if this is how a male is supposed to act, even though you believe your father's a female. Like it throws your whole spiritual compass out of whack when you believe that God in heaven is a male. It just doesn't. Nothing adds up, So, for another example, if you ask a woman, or not, ask anyone of the two sexes, let me ask you, of the two sexes, male and female, which one is responsible for the act of creation?
Female, obviously.
Obviously. And so with God making mankind, quote unquote, in her image, or in their image, actually, because it doesn't say in his image, it says in our image, which is because the first creation that was ever created was Jesus himself. And you have to look at it from God's perspective. If you were sitting in the vastness of space with ultimate power and unlimited time, and you are female sitting there, being that God is a female, she's sitting there alone by herself in the vastness of space, the first thing that she creates is her own son. So she has someone to love. And in creating her son, Jesus, giving her someone to love, that act of creation created love where there was none before. Before Jesus, there was no love. With Jesus being God's first creation, now God had someone to love. And since God had someone to love, now her entire plan was, let's find more people to love my son. Let's create them. And so mankind was created with the sole purpose of loving her son, Jesus. And when you love her son, Jesus, she loves you, just like when any other mother loves her child. And if you get in between the love of God and her son, Jesus, you live forever. That's just the way it works. It's very simple. You don't need to walk into a building and give someone your money every week to know that. But unfortunately, if you believe God's a man, the whole equation just goes out of whack.
Da Vinci also talks about how he believed that not only was God a female, but so was Lucifer. So wouldn't Lucifer, the female, also be behind these lies that God is a male?
Exactly, and we often believe that Lucifer herself is a male, which is the greatest deception that she can possibly do. And I truly believe that's where these two lies come from. You know, Lucifer is telling us that God is a male, because what's the ultimate lie you can say about a female, as if you call her a male? But then now the mother of lies doesn't want anybody to know who she is or how she operates, so she tells everyone that she's a male too. And so now we're running around thinking that the two most powerful deities in our spiritual existence are both males, when in fact they're both females.
Just trailing back to Mona Lisa and how we're talking about the mother's love, and that so Mona Lisa is really God. There's a recent, I think somebody recently came forward or talked about how there were signs in the painting that Mona Lisa was actually pregnant. What are your thoughts there when looking through the easel? And that kind of fits within that idea and the motif of Jesus. And
yeah, there are so many speculations as to why Mona Lisa has the look on her face that she does. And I understand why people create these theories. It's because you can't make out the look on her face without looking through it through a Da Vinci easel. If you look at Mona Lisa through a Da Vinci easel, no, she does not appear pregnant. She does not appear to have a thyroid problem.
Yeah.
She does not appear to be sick.
That was my favorite one, I think, the hypothyroidism. That was definitely my favorite. I was like, how would you even get to that one? That's like, it's funny how like your biases can just come through in something, just as simple as something like, oh no, she has, he's a medical doctor saying that. It's like, so I get why he's saying it, but you're just like, huh?
Yeah.
but what about
I spent 20 years on this.
yeah. So what about the researchers that agree with you that there are messages embedded in there? There are secret codes. Someone said that the bridge in the background features the number 72, and that even that or her eyes seen under a microscope have the letters L and V there. What have you seen on both fronts there?
So I believe that there may be some letters on her eyes. That all very well may be true. Now, mind you, those may just be byproducts of the way that a painting is created, because, again, mind you, when you look at the painting off of a Da Vinci easel, you will see things very differently than when you look at the painting on the Da Vinci easel. So off of the easel, there may be an appearance of an L and a V, or there may be numbers that appear on there. But if you look at the painting the way it was intended on the Da Vinci easel, those things become irrelevant, because you can clearly see the message of Da Vinci exuding from the painting itself.
Who was, in your opinion, I don't know if this information was handed down to you as well, but who was the real-life model for Mona Lisa? Some people say Lisa Gherardini, other people say others. What's your opinion there?
God herself is the real-life model for Mona Lisa.
But the actual look of Mona Lisa, the white, you don't think it's based on anybody? Did Da Vinci see God and this is the female that he saw in his mind? Or, was he using like a real-life model for that to display God?
I personally, that information was not given to me directly. I personally believe this is his envisionment of her, in much of the same way that he envisioned the mountain background of the scene that she sits on. Da Vinci was an expert at just envisioning things and then putting those things onto a painting that just sprouted from his imagination. So I truly believe this is his imagined version of God. I don't have any proof that he may have had a vision and seen her. But when you look at throughout Da Vinci's work, he tends to paint the same female face over and over and over and over and over again. And so I truly believe that he really believed this is what God looks like. Whether you're looking at the drawings of her or the paintings, she always has the same face.
And we don't have the time to talk about every single painting that he has and all the secret messages that he hid in it, but let's kind of take a stab at the other big one for us, the Last Supper. And that hides another message that is contrary to the teachings of the church. So share with us the true message behind the Last Supper.
So this is probably my personal favorite, only because when I was told about the Last Supper, and mind you, I was about 7 years old, so I thought it was very interesting, but it went into the storage banks and didn't come back out for another 15 or 20 years. So when I actually built a Da Vinci easel and put the Last Supper, or brought it up because I built an easel and hooked up with a computer monitor so that I could switch out the paintings at will. And so when I brought it up and I said, okay, look, so I'm supposed to follow the finger straight up. That takes me to this archway thing. And about halfway through, I'm like, why do I feel so dumb while I'm doing this? This is like, this has got to lead nowhere. Like, and so I get to the end of the archway and I find the house. And I'm like, okay, there's the chimney. Okay, yeah, that does look like a house. That's pretty cool. And then I zoomed in closer and I was like, holy crap, that is a scorpion under the house. And then when I zoomed back out again and I looked at it again, and then sure enough, I look over and there's Peter sitting there with his head turned, looking up at this house of the scorpion on the back of the painting. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this is all real. It's right in front of us. The answers are hidden with beauty. You're so busy looking at Jesus and the guy, holding the knife, and the other guy trying to tell people, hey, I'm not the one with the knife in my hands. And, you're looking at these other apostles. You don't even realize that two of these apostles are trying to tell us a direct message. And so I said, okay, look, House of Scorpio, that's fantastic. So now let's bring up the app and let's get the proof. Let's make sure that this actually shows a sign in the sky. And sure enough, if you bring up any app and then you roll that app back to year 1, November 21st, there is a parade in the sky of planets that line up perfectly with the sun, the House of Scorpio, or the sign of Scorpio, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter. I'm sorry, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter lined up in a perfect row, welcoming Jesus into the world.
How did he come to select that date? He selected November. Was it November 21st? Year 1. How did he get to that date?
Well, Da Vinci was close friends with Copernicus, and Copernicus, being the father of heliocentricity, was, the world-renowned expert of planetary alignments. And so I believe actually that Copernicus brought this to Da Vinci's attention.
Why would the church lie about Jesus' real birthday?
Well, that's, you're going to have to ask them. I don't even know if they even know Jesus' true birthday. I'd love to sit down with the Pope and the Vatican and have that discussion with them. It doesn't seem like something that they would need to keep from people, especially being that there's proof in the sky. But, it's kind of one of those rocks that if nobody looks under it, then, at the same token, they've been telling people so long that his birthday is December 25th, that to have to announce one day we've been wrong for so many hundreds of years, thousands of years, and we realize that we're wrong, then people are going to start going, well, what else are you guys wrong about? You got this thing wrong, and then I guess they just don't want their authority questioned. And so it's better to just say, look, don't even worry about it. That's the date. It's December 25th.
Some argue,
but it's November 21st.
Yeah, I've never even heard that before until that was brought up. Now, I heard obviously that their birthday wasn't right, but never November 21st. And the proof that you're giving is evidence is pretty interesting. What's your opinion on the idea that one of the apostles painted in there is actually Mary Magdalene?
I thought that was really funny. When I saw that in Dan Brown's movie, I thought, they're really going to be intrigued when I start to tell them what the truth about Leonardo da Vinci, because I understood what was said, and I understand the origination for that theory. It's because when you look at the painting, it's clear that there's something deeper. There is clearly a deeper message being said here. And when you look at it, the hair, and the body language without the Da Vinci easel, it looks like it kind of could be a woman. So I understand why Dan Brown would say, well, maybe this is what Leonardo da Vinci was trying to tell people. It just simply is not true. But it's a very good theory. I thought it was very interesting. When I first heard it, I was a little offended because I thought, well, that's kind of rude to say that was the Leonardo's message. But at the same time, I understood, because if no one told you what the true meaning, if no one told me, I never would have found it. So I don't blame anyone who has an incorrect assumption.
And Da Vinci was amongst other things, an artist and just a Renaissance man, and he was musically gifted too. And there's an Italian computer technician that recently said that a hidden musical message is in the Last Supper. Where do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I found it very interesting. At the same time, I just don't see. I've never been told. I was never taught any musical revelations, and when I looked at the musical findings that they put together, it looked to me, I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but you could do that with just about any art with multiple characters in it. It just kind of looks like you laid over a treble clef and you kind of put the notes where the heads are and play the notes. I mean, that's pretty cool, but I don't see it providing any deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm. Did a lot of people seem to kind of doubt his religious side. Why was that? Or at least, in the history books, he doesn't come off as super religious in any way.
Well, I truly believe it's because he understood the just the male dominatedness of the church and how it's designed as a power business. I mean, for lack of a better word, religion has become a business. Jesus, he never once instructed anyone to build a building and give everyone, come in and bring your money into this building and give it to the people who control this building and let them distribute the money as they see fit or keep it to themselves. That was never his teaching. So the fact that is the dogma that is prevailing and anyone who speaks against that is blasphemous is just kind of laughable, because this institution has been created completely aside of the teachings of Jesus. And so, I believe he didn't directly participate in religious activities simply because he understood the hypocrisy of them.
And speaking, I guess, of the hypocrisy, or at least, he was a logical man. Do you know what his beliefs were when it comes to the resurrection of Jesus?
Well, I know that he loved Jesus intensely. So I've never been taught anything about his direct views on resurrection, but I have to imagine that he believes in the resurrection and that he will be resurrected with all other believers on that day.
And his love for Jesus is probably most evident in, one of his classics, Vitruvian Man. Talk about the relationship there.
Yes, Vitruvian Man is a really interesting one because, as you know, it came about because of an argument between some of his friends where they were discussing how it couldn't be done. The squaring of the circle is an impossible mathematical equation based on proportions that are not able to be done by the human hand, because you cannot have a square and a circle with the same amount of area. And Da Vinci found the answer in the proportions of man related to the navel being the center of man. So Vitruvian Man is thought to be just an anonymous figure, but Vitruvian Man, the drawing himself, is trying to show you his identity with his eyes. And so when you look closely at the Vitruvian man's eyes, one of them is looking directly at you, the viewer, and the other eye is looking directly up inside of the drawing. And so if you follow the vector created by the eye, you come to a sunrise where Da Vinci is trying to say that the person in Vitruvian Man is Jesus because Jesus is the sun. And so he's trying to say that even though man is perfect, he's still the only perfect man. Even though our proportions are perfect, the only truly perfect man is the Son of God, Jesus.
And there were so many surprises after reading the Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci. What were some of the most surprising things that you learned about da Vinci in your teachings outside of these portions?
Well, the most surprising thing that I learned about da Vinci it's actually in John the Baptist, because that was one of the paintings where I, of course, was told to find the cross in the painting, but I wasn't actually told where the cross was. And so when I put the painting on the easel to look for the cross that John was pointing at, this is the one where John is sitting on the rocks and he's holding a staff that looks like a cross on the top. And he's pointing. I'm sorry, he's holding a staff, but it doesn't look like a cross. It's just a staff. And he's pointing in the direction of the staff. So I literally must have spent days, and I literally mean days, staring into this painting, looking into the darkness, looking into the mountain wall behind John, just looking and looking and looking and looking and looking, and actually becoming almost doubting if what I knew to be true was even true, as if there was no cross to be found. And then one day, while looking, I said, you know what, maybe I should stop looking at where the finger is pointing and just look at exactly where the finger is pointing. And within a few seconds, I found the cross right above John's heart. And it literally surprised me so much that I vividly recall screaming and jumping. And so it was one of those moments where, like, everything, that was probably the biggest oh my God moment of the entire process, was when it really hit me, this is all real. Like, Da Vinci literally hid treasure throughout his work. And it's amazing when you find it.
What type of influence has Da Vinci had on your life?
You know, he's really defined life for me, because for a number of years I actually didn't believe that God was a female. I went to church, Christian church, just like everyone else. I went to a Foursquare church. I actually explored religion in depthly. I went to Baptist church. I went to the Mormon church. I went to Jehovah's Witness churches. I went to Catholic church. I went to every church I could find to try to find God away from Da Vinci. Kind of like a rebellion, I guess that was what I was doing, you know. And it finally came back around to when I really got serious about Da Vinci and said, let me look and see what's really here. When I looked into his work, it just made so much sense. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this lie is so prevalent through our world that God is a male that we don't even stop to think if God is a female. And to know that she is, it's like, wait a second, this is why there's so much confusion in this world. Is because if you haven't got that one thing right, it's hard to get anything else right. And so he's kind of just brought a peace to my life.
And do you think that's what would happen if we were to switch our belief systems from believing that God is male and switching it to God is female?
I truly believe so. I believe that all wars, all of this unnecessary aggression, and fighting over resources when there's more than enough available, is because we truly believe there's a male energy emanating from above. But when you believe that there's a mother's love emanating from above you at all times, it just changes the way that you look at life and makes it more of a peaceful harmony.
And Da Vinci, he likened viewing his paintings without the use of the easel as if, looking outside through a foggy window. And I believe you're working with a group that's making the Da Vinci easel. Give out a little information about that.
Yes, we're in the process of mass producing the Da Vinci easel. We have the patent on the easel, which is currently pending, but it is filed, and we're just working out logistics. We're trying to get the price down as low as humanly possible. In an ideal world, we can get these out for under $100, and so anybody with the inclination can get an easel delivered to their door, and then either paint like Da Vinci, draw like Da Vinci, or just load up Da Vinci's artwork and put it on the easel. Put your laptop or put your tablet on the easel and take a look and just see. It's amazing what you'll see. It's quite fantastic when you look into Leonardo's three-dimensional world for the first time.
And they can go to DaVinciEasel.com, right, to get some more information about that?
That's right.
Oh, wonderful.
That's correct.
And just give out a little bit more information about the book, where people, the website, and where people can get that information so they can get their hands on it.
Yes, so the book is called Perspective, The Lost Codex of Leonardo da Vinci. It's currently available on Amazon.com on the Kindle version. Paperback and audiobook will be released by the end of the month. This is the month of May. And so by June 1st, we'll have paperback and audiobook versions, and you can download that. There's, like you said, there's many more secrets that are revealed. We could talk all night, and I would love to, but I know we do have to end the program here sometime. But
do we think there's going to be a sequel there? Any more possible teachings to unveil?
Sure. If you'd love to have me back, I'd be happy to come back anytime.
My pleasure. Do we?
You mean as far as the book?
Of course, yes. Is there going to be a Lost Codex, the sequel, number 2?
Well, what I do have plans for is kind of more of a crowdsourced codex where everyone now has the easel, and so I'm only one person. I can only go through so many paintings, but there are so many more things to find inside of Da Vinci's work that other people can find things, and we can put all the things that we find together into one big book and release that.
Oh, that would be fascinating. That would be fascinating.
Well,
let's definitely have you on again for, maybe we'll start a session for that, and we can start crowdsourcing and get a forum together for that, and love to have you on again so we can continue looking at some of the secrets of Da Vinci. And P.T. Lowe, really appreciate unveiling these important secrets on the mind's eye.
My pleasure.
All right.
Come on. This has been such fun.
Well, the feeling is very mutual, and it's definitely reciprocated, and we're looking forward to having you back on in the coming sessions.
Happy to be here.
And the Mind's Eye wrap-up when we return. We got the Mind's Eye wrap-up right now, and I just want to leave you with this quote from Da Vinci that I think after listening to this episode will have a whole nother layer of meaning. Art is the queen of all sciences, communicating knowledge to all the generations of the world. Hopefully this episode did a little bit of that. Until next time, be well and let well be. I'm DJ BJ Turnov signing off for The Mind's Eye on Stitcher Radio and Z Talk Radio.